All right, welcome everybody to our CEIR seminar series. I'm Audrey Rohr and Mary Lou is our director. We have a talk today that Xiaoshan Newton is going to lead for us to discuss a Gambrel Fellowship project that she and I are recently awarded, and we're going to embark on this project immediately. And it is an exciting CS education data and analysis project with CMS data. So I'll let Xiaoshan present and we'll have a guided discussion at the end. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm sharing my screens and we'll click forward. So Xiaoshan, just let me know when you want me to move forward.
That sounds great, Audrey. Thank you.
And if everybody can mute while she's presenting, but if you have a question, just feel free to unmute yourself and pose your question.
And Audrey, I appreciate your monitors because I'm not going to challenge my memorization. So I did prepare my slides with some script. Thank you, Audrey. So if you want to run slideshow, great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to share with you our Gambrel Fellowship Project. I'm Xiaoshan Newton, and I'm presenting on behalf of my co-PI, Audrey. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
So next slide. Yeah, here's an outline of my presentation. I will talk about what our project focuses on, highlighting the questions that will guide our study. And then I will talk about our analytic approach, including some of the anticipated complexities, which could also be opportunities for further research. And in the last part of my presentation, I will explain what led us on this research path. In other words, the so what question. After that, we'll open it up for discussion and also put out a call for research assistance. Next, please. So our project focuses on examining opportunities to learn computing and computer science in one of the largest urban school districts in the Charlotte area, namely Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District. Specifically, we will investigate whether and how opportunities to learn computing and computer science might vary depending on factors such as student population, school characteristics, and community wealth. We anchor our investigation of opportunities to learn around a framework called CAPE, where C stands for capacity, A stands for access, P for participation, and E for experience and outcome. With respect to capacity, our research will focus on instructor capacity signaled by teacher qualifications. And in terms of access, we will mainly look at course offering or availability at a particular school. For participation, we will examine course enrollment patterns, and also for experience outcome, we will focus on students' course performance. Next, please. Here are our research questions under the umbrella of the CAPE framework. I'll give you a quick 30 seconds to look them through, and I won't read over them. So let me see, okay? Have my educator quiet time for 30 seconds. So I do want to highlight a few points before we move on from the research questions. In terms of instructor capacity, it is quite possible that the existing administrative records or data sets at the CMS might not have this particular information, in which case we will use proxy qualification indicators such as qualification of teachers of mathematics or sciences, as they are the ones most likely tapped to teach computing or computer science courses. And in terms of outcome, or for external barriers, that are barriers to student experience outcomes, we will examine participation in food assistance, use of homelessness services in order to better understand how these kind of external barriers might contribute to the disparities in the learning outcomes. And last but not the least, for the interconnectedness question, we'll also examine closely students living in poverty or experiencing homelessness or having a history of trauma, utilizing information from child welfare information data system. So it's possible this sample will be small, but regardless of the sample size of this group, we argue policy formulation needs to be attentive to their special or specific needs. So these are some of the complexities embedded in our data analysis questions. Next, please. Thank you. And in order to address these research questions, we will take advantage of the integrated data systems from the Charlotte Regional Data Trust. In addition to the longitudinal data on CMS schools and the students, other data sources leveraged through the data trust include the DSS Economic Services as a proxy for living with low incomes and or receipt of important food benefits, homelessness management information system in order to better understand instances of homelessness, and crisis assistance ministry data information system in order to explore if the student was part of a household who received financial services for rent or utilities. So this type of integrated data system will provide important contextual information on schools and the students, especially those in underserved communities. Okay. And our analytical approach will consist of thorough exploratory and descriptive analysis on each of the questions under the umbrella of CAPE framework. And after that, we will utilize the advanced multi-level modeling technique to examine the interrelationships between the ultimate outcome, which is the likelihood to participate in and succeed in CS courses, and the factors that signal learning opportunities, such as access as signaled by course offering, capacity as signaled by teacher qualifications, and the resources as signaled by the communities where schools are located. Next, please. And here are some of the challenges that we probably will face, but some of these challenges we argue can be turned into opportunities for further research. So first, we anticipate that a considerable amount of time will be spent on data inspections, explorations, and analysis. This is to prevent, the so-called garbage in and the garbage out when you're working with in a school system that has over 141,000 students and with over 18,000 teachers and staff members. And secondly, I mentioned this before, depending on the types of information on teacher capacity, especially related to, as they relate to computer science or computing capacity, those type of information might be limited. In that situation, we'll have to use teacher qualification indicators related to STEM as a proxy indicator for CS capacity, because these STEM teachers tend to be the ones tapped for teaching computing and the computer science courses, especially in urban schools. And thirdly, the information on students who experience poverty indicators such as homelessness, trauma might be limited to a very small sample. And it is quite possible we will need to do a special analysis just to focus on these students. But we believe this kind of in-depth analysis focus on this smaller sample, apart from the other students, is important, so we don't make the one-size-fits-all policy recommendations. And last but not the least, our analysis, a large quantitative analysis, will be observational and correlational, and not causal in nature. But on the other hand, I think this types of nuanced data analysis using large and longitudinal data could provide the information that will help CMS leaders to facilitate their policy decision making. Next, please. So the last, very important, what led us on this research path and what we expect to contribute to our effort at broadening participation in computing and computer science. Well-known researchers on broadening BPC, broadening participation in computer science, such as Carol Fletcher and her colleagues, have long argued that significant progress to diversifying the computing industry requires us to take a system perspective and pay close attention to the entire ecosystem of computer science education and the precursor of root causes of underrepresentation. So that's one to take system perspective. And next, related to the first point in terms of taking a system perspective means the CAPE framework emphasizes the importance of examining factors at the different levels, like students, school, community, that impact students' learning and learning experiences and the outcomes. So the uniqueness of this line of work, first is our analytical approach consists of examining the questions pertaining to each level of that ecosystem. For instance, if we want to have better outcome, right, first we have to have capable or a teacher who has capacity to teach. But then if we have teachers, we staff them at schools, we need to make sure students have access to those courses. So course offering becomes very important. And then you offer the course at school, we need the students to participate, right? So you can see how that CAPE, that kind of a chain of logic help us to take a look at those factors systematically. And related to that, besides this conceptual framework to guide our thinking and in terms of calling out types of indicators, signaling opportunities, our analytical approach also is the multi-level modeling approach is a perfect fit in sync with the CAPE framework, where we can utilize that statistical technique to link factors at different levels in order to study the relationships among them. So that synergy coupled with our complementary strength in terms of knowing the urban school context, knowing the computer science landscape, we are hoping this line of work will generate information that could inform policy at the CMS local level, but also as a springboard for further research at the state level, as North Carolina lawmakers have just passed the computer science mandate as a graduation requirement. Thank you. Next, last one. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and open it up for Q&A. We really look forward to your suggestions as we embark on this line of work. And also we are looking for research assistance. Thank you. And thank you, Audrey, for working on this together. And thank you for being here.
Well, I'm very excited about this project because typically when you look at economic factors or socioeconomic factors in K-12 education, it's related to the lunch programs. And so this is a wider array of data that we'll be able to look at, and we don't know what kind of quality we're going to get, but that's going to make it very interesting. And we might be able to see what kinds of data does relate most closely to some of these factors that predict their ability to access CS education. Just because the state has mandated CS standards doesn't necessarily mean everyone is immediately going to become exposed to computer science at the middle school and high school level. So hopefully we'll be able to take a look at the second largest school district in the state. So I feel like the implications here can go really broadly. I wanted to see, as you all are stakeholders and have investment in this, whatever we might find, what do you think it might help you do and inform your studies going forward? I'm going to stop sharing so we aren't looking at that screen. Joshua commented that we are the 18th largest school district in the country. I did not know that.
Yes, for me, just finding out if the food insecurity or that, we did there's some studies in the higher ed education where it looks at kind of like high financial risk, like even with a student experience a project, they looked at demographic from that perspective. They classify them as high financial risk, right? Whether it's homelessness, food and shelter, financial aid. So those are indicators that they are at high financial risk. So it'd be interesting to see if that really does, like, how does it factor in this?
I have a comment. I don't know if it's a question, but when I was teaching the data science studio, it was about upward mobility, and we were using the data in our what's it called, the place that gives us data, social capital or whatever they are, the data sets that you pointed out. And one of the difficulties is the data we have. It's incomplete. It's not comprehensive. And so we found it really difficult for the students to use that data to answer the questions that they had to answer about upward mobility, which is many of the things that you're talking about. We couldn't even find out where AP exams, CSAP exams were offered in that data. And we couldn't learn enough from the data for the students to reasonably respond to any of the models that they were trying to build about where the barriers are to upward mobility. So I guess my comment is that if our data isn't complete or comprehensive, how can you answer the research questions with that data?
Mary Lowe, you raised a very good point. That's the downside of using existing data records. But did you get the same data from, is that the data trust? The same, yeah, you raised
data trust.
Pardon? Yeah.
Where's your data coming from?
So where we were, it's called the data, that's the DAROC. So it's a data regional, let me see. So it's basically a data warehouse that's housed within the urban institutes. So
Yeah.
over time they have
So in
comes
Charlotte, in our university, the data in our university, is that where you're getting it?
Data from the university, but also we will have to get additional data from CMS schools themselves, like course taking. Because I asked, the course enrollment information, right. Students' course progression, that information, I don't believe it's within the DAROC, but it's from the CMS. So the DAROC has the students, the demographics. So in terms of CMS data, that's definitely a challenge. We have to get the data license before we put our hands on the data, and it's longitudinal. They have their performance over time, state assessment, and maybe some whatever assessment information the district might offer, and then the typical demographics and the social economic indicator variables. But what they don't have great about it is then over time data trust builds integrated data systems. There are some students in CMS schools. Do we know anything about them outside that are very important? Like some of the things I mentioned about their welfare, homelessness, potential poverty, those kind of information. So those will be the information we'll be extracting as well. To try to have a little bit comprehensive picture of the students and the schools. So Marilla, I totally agree with you. Not to say the magic answer to your comments, but that's one of the things. One of the challenges we mentioned at the beginning is we'll spend a lot of time to put together all these data pieces from different data information systems And then I know over those over 141,000 students, who are they, right? Who are the ones from South Charlotte? I don't know, the neighborhood that's like, I don't know, in the Pacific Palisades in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, or which school neighborhoods are more like South Central LA, or those. So those would definitely need to have additional information, but those information don't necessarily come from whatever data trust information, the community level information, and the school characteristics information can come from the public records at the government level. So that's a long way to answer your comment, Mary Lou, is.
Yeah, I guess my point was that you presented it as if we can answer these questions because we have this data. And my experience with our students trying to answer not the same questions, but similar, was that collecting the data was the biggest challenge, not answering the questions. And we often had to be very creative about what kind of data we could get. So for example, who are these students? We would use the zip code of the school to determine the income of the students' families, because there's nowhere in the data about in the schools that tells you anything about the socioeconomic zone of the students. And we found that we really could not get clear information about where AP exams were. So we were having difficulty finding definitive data. So I guess my point is the data collection might be a bigger job than answering the questions.
I think you're absolutely right. And I want to point out, Lauren Slane has posted in the chat a suggestion to reach out to BPC Charlotte.
No, just for like organizations that do kind of broadening participation in computing.
Oh, I was going to ask you. I didn't.
So sorry, just like broadening participation in Charlotte in K-12, such as like there's a couple nonprofits that I feel like they probably have access to a large amount of data and they're connecting with CMS. So I don't know, just an idea, because they're working on access for computing across Charlotte and like lower income school districts or schools.
Thank you. I'm going to copy paste this. I'm taking comments, definitely.
Sorry, I was typing quickly in it, but I was just thinking of a couple that recently came to talk at UNC Charlotte.
That's a great point. Of course, we haven't got our hands on the data. So the integrated data system, I don't know which specific nonprofit might be in some of those data system. I'm not going to pretend to say we have all the best quality data to answer all those questions, but that's part of the first part is on getting the data, examining what we have, which the data trust actually has more than a lot of what's out there. So in other words, because they do have homeless information, they have food benefits, those kind of information. But and then Lauren, your suggestion of perhaps some other nonprofit might have. I will have to ask. Oh, good things we're meeting with Sydney tomorrow, the one who's managing the data. So then the data information what's available from other agencies outside of Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District. Educational agencies, one of them. So what other data information they have from other agencies or nonprofit? That down the road, I'm hoping as this project launch over time, we will be able to talk about specific data variables. And then we will know exactly what we can say and what we cannot say very low. But
I just want to reiterate.
Yeah.
I'd like to reiterate that we are going to reach out to CMS to try to work with them. And they're very closed with the data that they have, willing to share. However, this project is spanning the whole district. So we feel like there's that we can acquire data directly from CMS as well, because usually they have minimum amount of schools that you can work with, and we're trying to look at all of it. So that is part of the plans. And not to be cautious, not to overinterpret what we may have, because a lot of what we're looking at are proxies. And so how authentic these proxies are for the kind of questions we have to be scrutinized. And
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
think if we can find anything that might turn into some meaningful dashboard work, that would be my hope of a contribution for the college and for College of Education and College of Computing to be able to work with for
Yeah.
preparing.
Yeah, that's great. For different dashboard, that definitely we have to talk with our partner, right? CMS, their what's the Chief Accountability Director is on the board, the committee. I'm part of it as well. So, the committee that's overseeing who's requesting what data and what are you using them for to do that.
We'd
But-
also talked about, but we didn't
Uh-huh.
put this in the proposal. We had talked about collecting data directly from CMS teachers, because we really don't have a good measure of their preparation for teaching. And that is such a key component for capacity. But we didn't put that in this funding, this
No.
proposal, but it might be something that we end up doing or planning for, because the teachers themselves are not necessarily ready to launch, except at the magnet schools that are already teaching CS.
Yeah, that's a great point, Audrey, because as I mentioned, CMS will be one using their data and associated poverty or wealth information from other agencies. While we were waiting for the outcome of this little grant, I did reach out to Rob. He said is either he's assistant director or associate director at NC, the North Carolina department equivalent, the North Carolina Department of Education, but he's in charge of the technology, whatever, because he was on the advisory board for a grant we didn't get. Remember, we were trying to build credentialing, micro-credential. So I reached out to him. I told him about this project. I said, can we do something at the state level, looking across the entire North Carolina state? Because at that time, the lawmakers were debating to make computer science as a graduation requirement. Because at the state level, we can leverage not only the state level data, but also exactly what you were saying, Audrey, is I'm hoping through them we can have integrated information on teacher certification information at the state level, because that's managed by the NC, right?
Mhm.
And also, if you remember, Audrey, our little pilot seed grant to do landscape of how teachers are trained to teach computer science. One of the doctoral students did do. Right now, the dominating people who are training are private tech companies like Google, those kind of thing. The field is new in terms of it definitely much less mature, at least based on her preliminary landscaping in terms of university-based teacher prep program for computer science. I don't believe it's far less advanced than other subject areas. So that brings up an issue. We only had 3 teacher leaders, but one key takeaways from that little pilot reminded me of the professional fields who are in the American Evaluation Association, so-called accidental evaluators. I felt right now at some schools, there's accidental computer science teachers, meaning it's not, there's a credentialing requirement. You went through a training, you become certified to teach computer science. It's either teachers are motivated to teach that, they get some training from outside and they teach. That's one of it's based on the 3 teacher leaders, but and then based on a landscaping review of the doctoral students did to try to go out to find out what's the current landscape of computer science teacher preparation for K-12. Anyway, so what I mean is that there's a lot of work to be done, and but I don't know if it's feasible. Right now, the graduation requirement is made. So is it feasible, say, for College of Computing and the College of Education to collaborate and build a program to train teachers if it's not, I don't know, formal credentialing, or is it like like the other one, what's that, Audrey, we were trying to do? We didn't get to
All the micro credentials.
yeah, micro credential. Is
I
that
want to
the
pause for a
yeah.
moment because I saw some audio blurbs. So I think someone was trying to connect to audio. Are there other questions or observations? Yes, we have a heavy lift to try to rein in what data is around and to require or to request data from CMS in addition to the data trust. But were there other questions or comments that maybe that was just a fluke when I saw the audio bubbles?
Yeah. I think ultimately, I don't know. I'm new to this region. I worked in Los Angeles Unified School District, so I know a lot about schools. That's the second largest in the country, urban school district. So I don't know too much about CMS. I felt, and I couldn't find any information. I felt, for instance, we don't even know the distribution of teachers across different schools. I mean, it's possible it's consistent with what the research literature says, the schools, depending on community wealth, the qualifications of teachers are distributed accordingly. But I think immediate information for CCI, Nadia, I don't know if you're the teacher, the instructor who's teaching a class with 1,000 students right now. Yes. So I think the immediate feedback is, a lot of these students' kids will be feeder schools to our university, most likely. So maybe if there are certain kids from certain schools, if we look at their course enrollment, like math, science, or if whether they have a computer science offering in their schools, those could provide signals, I don't know, for our university. So it will be, definitely we have to be very humble with what we will be able to find. But I still think it's a very useful, very helpful, comprehensive look at these kind of a basic exploratory questions about these schools in terms of opportunities to learn computing, computer science, and STEM. Yes, yeah. That's what I'm excited about is really getting to know these schools. One of the largest around our university. Yeah. And I hope it will be useful for CCI. You guys have the largest, has a lot of programs that saw the largest enrollment.
Well, anecdotally, to your point, Xiaoxia, about how many students have exposure when they come in, anecdotally, and when I ask students in the classes I teach, which are small, right? I have like 40 students in one class. About a quarter of them have taken computer science at the middle school level and about half at high school. We'll see that change because of the North Carolina standards, but the requirement is not, it's just being mandated now. So if you're in high school now, I think you're grandfather claused, right? So we won't see the effects of that for many years to come. But I think I'm excited about the opportunity to try to work with CMS. I have tried to do that and have worked with CMS in the past, but at small localized relationship with the principal level, but to work with the district research office has eluded me. So hopefully we will make inroads there so that they can get some benefits from what we're trying to explore. And I see this as exploratory, and we may find
it is
something interesting, and it's going to be a bit of an arduous process for sure.
Yeah. And I want to emphasize, like the last one said, it's not causal. I know this is kind of tend to be economists tend to use very large administrative data from all over the place to make the social cap mobility, Mary Lou you mentioned, alluded to, but I'd rather not to go that far right away because sometimes they can start with 1 million cases. In the end, what wound up in the data set might be 10,000 pieces of information. So I see the value of the very careful, comprehensive look at whatever that's available there to pinpoint. Because if you go to their district website, they said that their technology ratio tool, right, students one-on-one. Does that mean we should feel good? I think my conjecture is no. You know, the disparities in terms of learning opportunities, I'm sure it's there. So,
I wondered, one of the things that North Carolina is trying to do with this new legislature is to get this CS for all out there. And one of the reasons for doing CS for all is to broaden participation in computing and STEM generally. And if they don't get exposed at the high school level, it's presumed that that when they go to the university, they won't choose that because they won't know what that is. They know what biology is, they know what chemistry is, they know what math is, they know what history is, but they don't know what technology is, and they don't know what engineering is. So the whole idea of getting it into the high schools is to increase participation and broaden it at the university level. Since it hasn't happened yet, as Audrey said, while it's being mandated, we're not going to see the effect of that for many years. This is a really good time to collect baseline data here at the university to be able to monitor the effect that it has and how long it takes. And if it's taking a long time, what can we do to accelerate it? Or maybe it increases the number of students who want to get into computing or engineering. It doesn't increase diversity, which means that the way that it's being rolled out in high schools is still perpetuating this, white male culture for engineering and technology and computing. And it would be good to know that sooner rather than later. So I'm wondering, Xiaoshu, as you're looking at this data and answering these questions, an interesting parallel would be to be looking at our data and start to build that baseline so that we can track what's happening here as a result of what's happening in high schools.
That's a great point, Mary-Lou. Thank you. Yes, we do have a decision support in the Office of Institutional Research, right? So the data, we should ask where those data are. Especially you guys are getting, I know this is not, I became increasingly more learning about CCI because of my faculty council role. I actually advocated for you guys because we didn't get the $12 million expansion fund. I did a pitch when I had the opportunity to present to the Board of Trustees the data showing. I actually used, I didn't name you, Nadia. I showed that course, the enrollment between last year and then this year, and what changes in teaching format has to be made in order to accommodate 1,000 students. I wouldn't know. That's the power of data. I never had an idea, and I bet I'm not the only one who knew our campus has a class with over 1,000 students. So anyway, that's the power of data related to this. But thank you, Mary-Lou. So if I think that's a great idea, because then looking at our university records will also hint at some of our largest feeder counties, perhaps, right? Because they are from different areas, our students, see how their preparedness.
It's been a while since I've been connected to the assessment data, but I think that we know what high schools, I know we do, but I don't know if we know what middle schools. So we know their county of origin for high school, but I think it would be great if we could figure out what middle schools they went to, because of the direct correlation from those magnet programs to here. There's probably more information available than I'm now aware, but I like that idea, Mary-Lou, for us to look at the baseline to see the impact on the CS program.
That's great. Thank you. And the longitudinal data for CMS, even if it's incomplete, I think it allows us the ability to track students as long as they didn't leave the district, because it's longitudinal, and we can see for the students what proportion will be able to track all the way to elementary school. That aspect excites me, is the longitudinal, see, as long as they didn't leave CMS, of course. And then maybe from middle to high school. But when you were just saying that, it reminded me the longitudinal. Thank you. These are great. Yes.
Quick question. How many Title I schools are in CMS?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer for that, but I'm going to write down. I just look at the demographics district-wide. I think definitely it's a district. Probably it's more with the students of definitely the students with color and from underserved communities. But I'm going to make a note at a number of Title I schools.
There are fewer schools that are not Title I than there are Title I. Almost clear majority are Title I. And there is a database where you can
See where they're
find out which schools. At one time, CMS was listing their Title I schools on their website. So I don't know if they did that for the current year or not. But
I know they have reports on every school, and that lists their demographic makeup and their performance, their report card, if you will, and that tells us if they're Title I. But it's PDF versions. There's got to be a better way.
The state,
maybe
I'm
not.
hoping the state, yeah, this David, thank you. David, do you know if at North Carolina state level has kind of database by schools where researchers can download? Because California has that school characteristics aggregated, because it's aggregated.
well, they have now. You can download the data and to an Excel sheet from there, but that's only going to give you like in the course end of grade test scores.
So sorry, there's an Amber Alert.
I think, thank you, Nadia. That is a good idea about looking at census data for some of these proxies. And
right now, there's a data group at Duke that collects North Carolina school data. But I don't know if they would have data with the variables that you're interested in.
Well, thank you. I think you guys mentioned that in one of the proposals, right?
Yeah, they charge a fee, and yeah.
Okay, Duke. So we will spend a huge amount of time just putting together data, but I'm excited. I'm the person who prefer to spend 80% of the time doing very thorough, exploratory, nuanced analysis. And the inferential statistics will come the last part because of the garbage in, garbage out. And ideally, this will pinpoint areas of school in the community or even cluster of schools where we could go in to do further research, right? Which is really, really further research. So
I just found online they do have a list of schools that are Title I.
oh, okay. Thank you, David.
I'll put that in chat.
Okay.
And then it tells you if they are, also tells you if they are have targeted support or comprehensive or other things. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Thank you.
it's a long list because it's almost all schools. There's only a few schools that aren't on this list.
Thank you, David. I mean, this is still in the midterm. Of course, this as we go on, I'm hoping Audrey and I can share once we have a little bit data information, progress report over time. And we'll definitely invite CMS stakeholders. And David, since you are here as well, definitely this is kind of not a one-shot research. It's small, right? But if we could expand this to have, I did ask the guy at the NC level, are there any state funding that could help us to take this to the state level and even help us perhaps do some of the surveys, Audrey, you mentioned, to ask teachers. I don't know how response rate those. But so David, your center for STEM and then this center, I think definitely we could if there are opportunities and if we have some promising preliminary exploratory themes or patterns or findings that will help us to say, let's take a look at this better.
Right.
To pursue, put together a team.
Yeah, if you can
So-
identify some variables to explore from data.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited about all these interdisciplinary research on STEM and the computer sciences. So, and I have access to you guys. I'm very excited. Thank you.
Exactly.
And thank you for being here. I know I've talked a lot. It's almost time. Anybody, I should be quiet now. Anyone has more suggestions? And again, thank you for sharing all the thoughts and the suggestions.
I guess I'm looking at the list of like the Title I schools. I grew up in Charlotte and I was educated through Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. And of course, over the years, the schools have expanded, the number of schools has expanded tremendously. But, you know, if you were to ask, well, what schools would be the first ones to offer like computer science, especially in the high schools, I mean, I know what neighborhoods that would be targeted first, because those schools do seem to receive more resources than some of the other schools in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. You know, if it's in South Charlotte, more than likely they have certain resources that other schools around the city don't have.
No, we don't want that, right?
Right, but
we
I
want
mean,
the under-resourced schools to get priority.
even if you look at like AP classes or IB courses, it's going to be some of the schools in South Charlotte, Myers Park, especially. I mean, it's a wealthy part of town, and those schools tend to get more of the resources.
I'm learning. Thank you, Jody. That's the reason why I'm a fierce advocate for. We have, you know, for the individuals, let's forget about politicians and national security. I think for individual students, STEM and the computer science are a great tool to uplift social mobility and
I mean, a few years ago, didn't the Urban Institute do research about upward mobility in Charlotte? And more than likely, most of the people who grew up here, it's not going to be at a high percentage as other groups. So I mean, so we know that there's research out there that's saying upward mobility is more of a struggle for people who grew up here in the Charlotte area.
Yeah, the Getty report. Yes. Yeah. So hopefully, you know, we do this. We said, hey, if you have limited funds, you have to invest in these. Not that park you mentioned, South Park, because there. I mean, it's true. I look at my kids. My kids are incredibly privileged. We are not wealthy, but we have. Anyway, they love computer science, and we do our best they get a lot outside of school. So I know there are families that are doing that for their kids. And so when we have limited public funding, we really wanted the schools to provide that at school to the kids who might not have family means to enrich their computing or computer science or STEM opportunities. Anyway, that's my belief.
So I know we're talking about problematic and I'm thinking of more data, but I was thinking about facilities themselves because of the school bond issue and upgrading buildings and facilities. That is part of our capacity. I think we didn't realize that we were thinking about the teachers themselves, but the building capacities and the state in which these buildings are. I just remember recently that the district building was treated for fleas recently. So, I mean, there's a lot of problems and like mold and things like that. So I don't know where we might find that data, but when we meet with the data trust this week and then eventually CMS, we might be able to find out some information about the actual facilities themselves.
Physically. Okay. Thank you. I made a note of that. Yeah. Thank you. I know we're running out of time. Thank you again. And by the way, I do from a faculty council perspective, I'm happy to advocate for CCI because you guys are growing. And Nadia, when I saw you are teaching that, I don't know, I think that's also right, equity issue. So feel free to share with me what I advocate for faculty is that faculty work hard to support student success. And as Charlotte is growing larger and larger, we need resources to support faculty to do that work. I got the first opportunity that I taught focused on teaching, and the CCI was one of your case that showed the challenge and what you guys are doing within the constraints. Let's see. Hopefully, I mean, the board of trustees are a bridge between us and the community, and between us and the Rowley. So I'm hoping to get the message. We want them to advocate for us. Thank you. So feel free to let me know.
Thank you, Shausha, for sharing the project overview with us and for including me in the project. I'm glad to be working with you on this. And I think that we will find some interesting ways to obtain data and what data is out there. And that will be information that will be useful to everyone. And then to see what we can actually investigate. This is going to be interesting. Thank you all for your contributions to suggestions for us and what we might look for. We appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you again. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. And the suggestion.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
you.
Bye.
everyone.
Bye. See you.